You're listening to The Social Workers on WCDB Albany.
Welcome to a special edition of the Social Workers Radio Talk Show. I'm your co-host, Alyssa Lotmore. Today I'm here with Dr. Loretta Pyles, who is a professor at the School of Social Welfare at the University at Albany. She is also a yoga and meditation teacher, workshop leader, and organizational consultant. Her new book is Healing Justice: Holistic Self-Care for Changemakers. She is also the author of Progressive Community Organizing, Reflective Practice in a Globalizing World, and co-editor of Holistic Engagement, Transformative Social Work Education in the 21st Century. Welcome, Dr. Pyles.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Today we're going to focus on your new book, Healing Justice. So this will be a short segment, only about 15 minutes, so we're going to jump right in. Why is there a need for a book on self-care for social workers?
Yeah, well, I've been teaching as a social work educator for quite some time now and have noticed that my students are really quite in need of some kind of support around self-care. What I heard them saying is that their professors talk a lot about self-care, but they really don't teach them how to do that or create the conditions where they have the opportunity to really do that. And likewise, as I've been working in the community and in organizations, I see lots of burnout there. I see organizational trauma, and I see people not really having the time to go inward and check in and be with themselves so that they're sort of not perpetuating some of these issues that they're working with, and including their own internalized oppression, their own histories of trauma. So that's what the book is for those folks.
Because I remember even as a student, I would hear the word self-care, and it's hard to grasp sometimes. Sometimes we think, oh, that just means going for a walk after work or listening to music. But it really, I think one of the things in your book, and you'll talk about this throughout the interview, is it goes deeper into what self-care really is and how to, be in touch with yourself and really know what's going on and what you need to do for you.
Yeah, it's really situated within, and I think this is what kind of makes this book unique, is that it's situated in the what I call transformative social change or transformative justice framework. And so the idea is that if we want to work to address various social problems in our communities and with our clients and in our organizations, we also need to do that same work with ourselves. And so the self-care approach is really a transformative approach to self-care, so that it's about learning about ourselves, and it's about learning to be in relationship to ourselves. So it's really becoming it's more of a social justice issue as much as a self-care, as well as like a sustainability issue. How do we sustain our work for the long haul?
And that was my next question, sort of what is unique about this approach, and you sort of just answered that. So I'm going to jump into what do organizations and agencies need to do to support this culture of healing justice? Because it's not just the individual, right? You have to have the agency that you're working for and other people to support sort of either employees or whoever, the social workers there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm seeing approaches to self-care that are a little bit individually oriented, and they're almost a little victim blaming. They're almost like you were saying, oh, you just need to, go for a walk on your lunch break, or you just need to do more yoga, and yet not really changing the business as usual conditions that are perpetuating the burnout. And so it's becomes almost a cruel joke to people to say to them, oh, you should practice self-care. And so really being kind of more of a macro person anyway, my approach is let's look at the organizational context. Let's look at the structure of the organization, the culture of the organization, and the things that we can do within the organization to make these changes. So there's a whole chapter in here called the Healing Justice Organization, and it's actually one of the chapters I'm most proud of because it really is looking at things like not only worker well-being, but what voice do workers have in terms of making being able to make decisions in their organizations? Is decision making transparent? Are higher ups held accountable for the kinds of decisions that they're making? And when these things aren't happening, it's not a place where justice can really thrive. And so all of this is also commensurate with a trauma-informed approach within organizations. Like, are our organization perpetuating traumas onto its workers? And so we want to create a space where we're not perpetuating that same old status quo. How could our organizations be different? Organizations are really nonprofits, public agencies. They're often modeled on for-profit organizations, and that really, it creates some disconnect, I think. I'm seeing this with my students. There's a lot of disconnect between their ideals around social justice and self-determination and some of those values-driven aspects of the profession, and yet they're also seeing sort of this bottom line type of mentality and outcomes-driven efforts that really fail to bring the values and processes that they're interested in doing. So this disconnect is really, I think, disconcerting for a lot of people. And so part of the project is to help people just to first and foremostly bring critical awareness to that and be able to hold some of these contradictions so that we can work better to address them.
So this book is really for whether you're an employee or even the leader of an organization. It's really for everyone to be able to sort of see what's going on in the organization, no matter what your role is, where you are in the hierarchy. How can we make this a better place for everyone to work with? Because the better the employees are doing, the better the clients are doing. That they can help other people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, can you share some of the personal inquiries and skill building exercises that the book offers? Because it's not just sort of like here's information. It really gets into what you can do. Yeah,
definitely. So as you were saying, there's a lot of sort of the analysis around, what is the context that we're living in, this larger global context, more of the commodification of social services, getting them to think critically about what's going on and why we need to do that. But then there's also sort of some of the evidence base for some of these self-care practices that's brought in. I bring in case studies of individuals their composites based on people I've known, but these are case studies of folks who are on their own self-care healing journey, as well as organizations going through various transformative processes. And then in addition, it's actual skills. So actual skills and inquiries. And one example would be, I bring forth the reality of sort of the digital 24/7 reality that many of us are faced with. And there's a term that a thinker that I really like brought forth. His name is Douglas Rushkoff, and the term is called digiphrenia. So digiphrenia is just this, this contradiction between the real world pace of things, that actually an embodied sense of doing things, and then the sort of the frantic 24/7 of social media and online presence. And so that disconnect is creating this, what he's calling the digiphrenia. And so there's inquiries around that as well, how that's impacting us. And so opportunities for people to work with their relationships with their cell phones, for example, and create a little more empowerment in terms of people's relationship with that. So that's kind of one example of something.
And an important example.
I think so. And I think it's something that we're not really talking about so much in social work, about the impact that that's having on all of us, but particularly this new generation of students and how that's affecting them just psychologically in terms of anxiety and depression, and how that can sort of exacerbate the stressors that they're facing.
So what do you hope to achieve with the publication of this book? I mean, we just heard all the things that your book has to offer. It's needed. It's needed for students. It's needed for employees, social workers. It's needed for organizational leaders to know. What do you hope to accomplish by, achieve by having this book out there for people to read?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm wanting people to become sort of early adopters of this model of thinking about holistic self-care, this idea that we're interested in the whole self of the person. It's not just the mind, but it's the body, it's the spirit, it's the emotions, it's our community, it's the natural world we're connected with. So adopting this model, this way of thinking about self-care as a social justice issue, a trauma-informed approach, and doing that, not just by reading the book, but by educating a new generation of social workers, but also by going into organizations and supporting them in change efforts around how they could actually implement some of this in their organizations. So that's kind of my charge now, is supporting people in doing that work, doing some self-assessment, and then helping people to reflect on what their strengths and opportunities are, and then help them to sort of co-create sort of an intervention, almost an organizational intervention for themselves in terms of how they can be a healing justice organization.
Well, this is really exciting, and your book is beautiful, by the way, so hopefully when people buy it, they can see I love the coloring and the whole design of the book. But you have a website, www.lorettapyles.com. I know you're on social media, so there's different ways. What's the best way if somebody wants to buy or purchase your book or find out more? Is your website
Yeah, go to the website, and there'll be different routes for people to find out about the book there, and it's for sale on Amazon. Also, Oxford University Press. If people want to reach out to me through the website, they can do that, and I can give them a little code that would give them a special discount too. So they could do that too.
Well, this is really exciting. Again, we're here today with Dr. Loretta Pyles, who just shared with us the information about her new book, Healing Justice, Holistic Self-Care for Change Makers. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.